Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Brignand. I'm originally from Reno, Nevada, and a current rising junior studying international studies and music at American University in DC. The reason why I joined the 1882 Foundation was due to my interest in learning the Chinese American, or more broadly speaking, the Asian American experience in the United States. I wanted to find ways to advocate for and uplift these communities. I wanted to become more knowledgeable of DC Chinatown due to my passion, my research project, and the development of DC Chinatown. And last but not least, the core reason why I joined the education curriculum team was to find ways in expanding the minimal political power AAPI communities hold. This led to my contribution to the education team, where I wanted to not only educate on the importance of voting and political engagement, but also bring forth ideas, our history into action as a motivation, and making it into tangible steps that the youth can take and do to build upon their motivation and passion to truly represent and uplift our communities. I'm in the middle of building a toolkit that educators and activists can use to inspire AAPI communities, specifically the youth, to feel motivated in participating in the political system, especially during a time that is so dark and pessimistic when looking at the current political climate and regression in social movements. It's easy to resort to questions such as, does voting even matter? Does my one vote even count? When the changes we're witnessing aren't what we had hoped for. However, that attitude not only tears down the decades of progress we have made, but it also discourages any positive change and movements that counter the negative and backward ones. Plus, before I move on to my next point, it is statistically insufficient to think that your vote doesn't matter, because the more votes there are, the more split or divided the voting pie is. So by giving up your vote, you're actually not only not part of the political conversation and decision-making process, but you're also giving more power to the people who are voting. While voting is extremely important, it is also crucial to recognize that not everyone has the ability or the privilege to vote. It is known that marginalized groups in America have not always had the political power they have today. In fact, Asian Americans have not only been excluded from the political world for more than a century, but they also encountered and experienced little exclusion, specifically Chinese immigrants, from even entering this country for more than half a century. Comparing that, a time when we were completely invisible in the political world, to the current stage where we are able to exercise our right to vote, though we are still very underrepresented in Congress, having 6.1% of AAPI members being in the US population, but only making up 0.9% of elected officials. We have actually made a significant amount of progress that we do not recognize enough. In fact, during the 2020 elections, we Asian Americans truly showed that our voice can no longer be silenced or ignored, from having a record voter turnout across the nation. It is predicted that Asian Americans will steadily grow into a dominant force in American politics, and that we are the new wave of undecided voters that politicians will pay more attention to. Now more than ever do we have to unite and fight for our communities in order to be seen and heard. As we witnessed from the Stop Asian Hate movement, the model minority concept, or myth actually, is being deconstructed. We are finally at more of a consensus that being the invisible minority will not serve us well and will actually be harmful to us in the long run and to other communities. On top of historic structural exclusion we're facing, there's also the cultural and generational barriers that prevent us from being more involved than we would like to be. Another aspect to consider is the challenge of the diversity within the Asian American community. Since we are so diverse in the different nationalities, ethnicities, and the languages we speak, we are both overrepresented and underrepresented. For example, nationally, Asian Americans are more likely than Americans overall to be without a high school diploma, but they are also more likely to have a four-year college degree. So depending on the scale in which we're measuring certain qualities, being in an inherently large category puts us in a tricky spot that naturally pits us against each other due to that large difference among different groups within the community. So recognizing our similarities and differences is incredibly crucial because our internal diversity is very important to us and is so beautiful. However, we need to channel that using that diversity that we possess to bring us together, actually, the Pan-Asian groups, as it is the best path to political power. Because if we keep following the current system that is designed to pit minority groups against one another, then the people in power will continue to stay in power without any consideration of including us. The goal is to broaden the pie so that we can all get more pieces of it. Therefore, my goal through my project is to provide and bring forth a toolkit that allows more AAPI members, particularly the younger generation, to be more raised, provided for, influenced to participate in the civic process, organize and mobilize the community. In preparation for the midterm elections this fall, I am creating that toolkit that I wish I had when I was a younger voter in the year 2020. I hope to create more hope and optimism in the trajectory of having more Asian American political empowerment through direct engagement in the process. This toolkit consists of historical lessons and facts that I briefly mentioned just now that show how far we have come, that will motivate people and give a different perspective on why voting matters. I want to provide ways to become more engaged, and it doesn't even have to be big where you run for a position in office, but just registering to vote, voting, or participating in grassroots movements and organizations. And last but not least, having more difficult conversations with family members to encourage them to be more active in the political process as well. This project will be more finalized when it gets closer to the voter registration period, and hopefully this will make a difference. I truly hope this can encourage and empower Asian Americans to participate in the political process.